Hey, good morning and welcome to the Stonemaier Games weekly livecast. I am Jamie as usual, and I'm here to answer any questions you have, to discuss some random topics, to talk about Pendulum, of course, and to share some Stonemaier Games news and what's going on at Stonemaier Games. So, yeah, let's get started here. I hope you had a good weekend. If you're in the US, you probably had a long weekend because it was Independence Day weekend here, July 4th weekend. Hopefully, you did something fun. Hopefully, you played some good games. I traveled to Kansas City with my girlfriend Megan to see her family, to hang out with her family. It's really the first time that we've been inside without masks with other people, with one other small exception, in 4 months. And that exception was still socially distanced inside with the door open. So it was kind of nice to be around other people for a little while, people who we had trusted to self-isolate and be very careful with masks and touching things and washing hands, and just relax and be normal people around them for the first time in a long time. And now we're back to, of course, self-isolating and social distancing, still being very careful about that. But I hope you had a good weekend and that you were safe and careful about that so that you stay healthy and prevent the spread of this terrible coronavirus that keeps on going. Yeah, let's see what's going on today. I'm just scrolling through looking for questions. Lots of people greeting me good morning. Thanks for dropping in and saying hi, everyone. This weekend, oh, one little thing I don't want to forget is that right before we left for this weekend, someone heard me talking on Facebook Live, a guy named Xiang, who noticed that I wanted a copy of the Hobbit version of the love letter, but couldn't find it because it's out of print. And he so kindly sent me one. And so we had this to take to Kansas City. It's my favorite version of Love Letter because I love the theme and I enjoy Love Letter, but I especially like this version. And just while I was in Kansas City, someone else even emailed me, a guy named Ian, to offer the same thing, which is so kind. I already had it, so I didn't accept Ian's offer, but that was those acts of kindness really, really touched me, and I really appreciate that. Looks like Carlos says, every day he's more intrigued by Pendulum. I was curious what was the biggest change gameplay-wise that the game had after the design day development. It's actually something that Travis noted or has noted to me in his stories that he sent me that I'll be sharing. But in very brief form, it's the timing of how when you execute the actions in Pendulum. Let me pull out the board to show you what I'm talking about. Pendulum, if you don't know, is our new game that we recently announced. I am unveiling day by day and rather quickly, actually, what the game is all about. One of the things I've recently discussed is how the timers work and how the worker placement works. So basically, if a timer is here and it's ticking down, it's the same timer that's running out here on this space. You can see how this action mirrors this one. So while the timer is here, you can place workers in one of these three spots. These are places where you can place a single worker, or if there's already a worker there or workers there, you can place a grande worker there. Then, when this timer runs out and a player decides to flip it, you don't have to flip it right away. You can choose when you're ready to flip it. And you flip it over here, that's when you execute these actions. And so that's when, anytime while that timer is running, you can move a worker from here down to the benefit by paying this cost. So you can see here the cost here is 2 coins. Move it down and you gain your red octagon benefit, which I talked about in today's design diary. This is the engine building part of the game. Or here you can gain 2 prestige. Here you gain a power and 2 votes. You move the worker down and gain that benefit. In previous iterations of the game, while it was at design day, before we started to develop it, it was when you, let me make sure I get this right. It was the timing of when you actually took the action changed. I believe it was when you placed the worker. I'll have to go back to Travis's notes, but the timing of when you actually executed the action was different, and I thought a lot less intuitive than it should have been, because the theme is that you put a worker here, they're ready to start working. I guess maybe the theme could work either way, but the idea is that the worker is spending this much time to gain this benefit. But it was just, I'll have to look at the design. I'm forgetting the exact timing right now, but the timing of like when you actually executed the action was a little bit different before, and I think we made it a little bit more intuitive in the final version. What else can I say about Pendulum? So I've showed a bunch of stuff, so I'll just show it on camera here. So I've showed the board. It's a little hard to fold out on camera, but the board is double-sided. It scales for 1 to 3 players, and then one side of the board is 4+ players. Out of the box, it's a 4 to 5 player game. It's possible, if it works, we'll add a 6 player in an expansion later, but we haven't tested that. We don't have plans for that necessarily. I've talked about the double-sided asymmetric player mats. So this is one version of Bulk, Bulk the Warmonger, and here is Bulk the Champion. And you can see the tracks up here. These are the victory point tracks. They are different lengths on each side, very different actually on Bulk here. Although I guess military is long on both sides. They have different starting resources. Actually, it looks like Bulk is the same for starting resources, and they have different ongoing benefits. There's a more advanced side that has slightly more complicated ongoing benefits, and these are your production benefits. And down here is the slightly more basic side. And yeah, there are 5 of these. These are all double-sided and frosted on both sides. So if you like that frosting that we use in Tapestry, all the player mats have that too. So here's another one, double-sided. There are 5 of these double-sided characters. Just today, I actually talked about the council phase of the game. So this is the untimed phase at the end of each round, where the player order matters. So the number of votes that you've accumulated during each phase to appeal to the council matters. You spend all those votes. You must spend all of them. And the order in which the privilege order you gain from spending those votes determines who gets to pick the cards from this mat first. And there's always one card that's built into it, and this option is always built into the mat as well if you don't like any of the cards that are there. I haven't talked about Automa yet, so I won't show that. What else can I show? We have the sand timer, so we have the purple timer, the black timer, and the green timer there. What else have I shown? Oh, today I talked about the province cards, the 56 province cards. So these are one of the major engine building elements of the game. These are 56 unique cards illustrated by Robert Leese, representing lands that you can conquer during the game. So you acquire these, and then you decide which part of your engine you want to improve based on the orientation in which you slot these under your player mat. So we have these slots down here, and so if on this card I like the blue octagon, I would then, let me see if I can align this right, there we go. I would slot that in there so that whenever I gain the blue octagon, I would gain not only 5 of the blue resource, forgetting the name of it right now, and I would also gain 3 votes from the blue octagon benefit. So that's province cards. I also talked a little bit about how each of the characters is not only asymmetric in terms of what they show on the mat, but also they have their own unique deck of cards, or hand of cards. It's only 4 cards. So they have a unique back to the cards, and then the fronts determine what you do. And these are cards that you spend when you need them, or when you have a little break in the action. Like if you have a worker that's on an action that takes 2 or 3 minutes, that's actually a fairly long time. It doesn't feel like all that long when I say it, but in the game time, you might just be sitting there for a little bit, and you can play these cards while that's happening, or you can strategize ahead. There's probably more I can show you. Feel free to ask. I'm not going to show everything today, but let me check out the questions over here to see if I'm missing anything. Brandon says, when will pre-orders start? We're planning to do pre-orders on August 5th. If something crazy happens with freight shipping, we'll change that, but that is the planned date. Levy says, have you ever successfully scored all of your predictions when playing the Mystics in Tapestry? So talking about our 9th game, Tapestry, the game before Pendulum. I don't know. I can't remember. It's possible, but I don't know. Levy says that he finds it difficult to do, but and he tried a lowball prediction strategy, but really missed those points at the end. Yeah, that's the push and pull with the Mystics. Adil says, what are some of the other names you considered for some of your games? How close were you to publishing under those names? We came to Pendulum pretty quickly, so I don't necessarily remember that one. Let's see, I want to put this off camera so you can't see everything. What else did I consider? Okay, well, the most memorable one is that Euphoria was called Dystopia for quite some time during development. I really liked the name Dystopia, and my co-founder, Alan, kind of pushed it against it for a while, saying that it sounded a little bit too stark. And eventually I agreed, and I think he was right. We changed the game to Euphoria, which I think is a better name, and it kind of plays into the tongue-in-cheek humor and look and feel and aesthetic of Euphoria. Scythe, I can't remember any other names for that. Viticulture was actually called Trellis for a while during the design process. Viticulture was called Trellis. what are some other Wingspan? The original name of Wingspan from Elizabeth was Bring in the Birds. I think that was the name. Bring in the Birds. And I really liked Wingspan a lot more. That was a name that I had actually been wanting to use for a while, originally for a dragon game, and the bird game came along, and I was like, oh, let's definitely use Wingspan for that. John says he is enjoying the Pendulum Design Diaries. He said he started a solo Charterstone campaign last night and was thinking about the recharge packs. I can't think of a single other legacy game that has offered this, and I was wondering how well it sold. Did it meet your original expectations? If you were to release another legacy style game in the future, would it be a must-have for you? Yeah, we don't have plans on doing a legacy game in the future, but if we did, I would probably do a similar legacy recharge pack formula if it worked for the game. I don't think all legacy games, in fact, most legacy games are not necessarily designed to be played after the campaign is finished, but some of them are, like Clank is. Clank is designed to be played afterwards, Clank Legacy. I thought it went okay. I think we made too many because the thing with those recharge packs is it's the most economical to make them along with the other components. So if I'm printing 10,000 copies of Charterstone, 10,000 sets of cards, it's the most economical at that point to print another, I don't know, 3,000 sets of cards for the recharge pack. And I think we made too many in the original print. I think we made too many recharge packs. So that wasn't, it was a guessing game. We didn't really know how many people were actually going to buy the recharge packs. So I would recommend doing it. I think it was a good idea, but I would say to go fairly low on it, and then if you reprint the core game, you can make more recharge packs at the same time. Kevin says, what happens when two players in Pendulum place a worker on the same space at the same time, and given that a space only allows one worker? It's surprisingly actually rare that this happens. It is a good question. There is a thing in the rule book about it. Basically, it depends on privilege order. I talked about those votes a minute ago. So the votes you gain during each round determines your privilege order. Ties are broken by privilege order. But because your timing is always a little bit different than other players, when you actually are picking up and moving around your workers, I found it's actually pretty rare that it happens. In fact, I would say I don't think it's ever happened in a game that I've played. I'm sure it did come up in playtesting for Travis and our blind playtesters, but it's very rare. But we do have a mechanism, the privilege order, which is very quick and easy to see on the board who gets the broken tie there. Jared says, is the box of Pendulum a little smaller than the usual square box game? No, it's actually exactly the same size. It's the Ticket to Ride size, the Wingspan size. It's 296 by 296 by 70 millimeters. Chris says, what are my thoughts on virtual gaming when conventions open up again? Do you think we'll still see virtual experiences for those who are not able to attend the conventions run by the convention or publishers? I don't know. I'm curious to see how it works out for Gen Con. I think certain things for Gen Con can work really well in virtual format, like panels and speakers and things like that. It's the actual seeing people and playing games and having events in person that I think don't work quite as well. But I've gotten pretty used to virtual gaming at this point. I play a lot on Board Game Arena. I love Board Game Arena. I think that works well for it. But I definitely do miss playing games with other people, as we did this weekend. I played games with Megan plenty, just one-on-one, but it was nice to play games with a larger group of people. We played Downforce, we played Forbidden Desert, and Hanabi, and On Tour over this last weekend. Carol says, did I see the Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria on Kickstarter? We're big fans of the designer, and the usage of dice in this game looks neat. No, I had seen a preview about it, but I didn't realize that it was already live. So I will have to check that out after the podcast, or after the live cast. Valeria, I'll make a note about that. Lots of games launched on Kickstarter yesterday. Lots of expensive games. There was the Ascension Tactics. There was the Dead Reckoning by the Edge of Darkness designer. And there's one other one that came out that looked cool. A lot of ambitious projects. I love to see the ambition on Kickstarter these days. Mike says, how many pages is the rule book for Pendulum going to be? Last week, I believe you said it was going to be more than 4 in Tapestry. Yeah, Tapestry was designed around being a short rule book. I wanted a Civ game that you could learn very quickly and easily. Pendulum is what are we looking at? 24-page rule book. But I mean, we kind of use our space and time to explain things. We probably could have condensed it more, but lots of big visual examples. There's some white space in here. I look forward to showing it to you next week. And also, we distilled it thanks to NERC down to a single 2-page reference guide. So there's a quick reference guide in Pendulum as well that has a distilled version of the rules. Tim says, does your worker free as soon as you pay, or do you have to wait until the timer is finished? Yeah, if your worker is on the board, so so you say you put a worker up here, you flip a timer up here, and that's when you can use the worker to pay the cost, gain the benefit. Your worker is locked in place there until that timer is done. So that's, while it sounds constricting, it's actually really nice because it means that as soon as the timer's flipped, you don't necessarily have to take the action. You might be busy with other things, and so you can come back to it. You know, you have, say, 3 minutes, I believe, on this one. You have 3 minutes on the purple timer. So you know you have some time to get this money if you don't already have it, doing something else, and then gain the benefit when you're ready to gain it. Rachel says, will solo be beat your own score? No, Rachel, no. Our games have a much more robust solo system where you called Automa, where you actually get to play against what feels like an intelligent opponent without dealing with the hassle of running all the things for another opponent. So if you've ever played any of our Automa games, our solo variants or solo modes in games, you'll know about it. And if you don't, feel free to look up information about that. Most of our games have Automa, the Automa system in them, which is what I just described. It's a great system. I'm not the designer of it. Morton is, and he does a great job with it. Okay, here Travis the designer is here, and Travis chimed in. He said, you used to have to wait to take the benefit. So this is talking about one of the bigger changes that happened during the design process. He said, you used to have to wait to take the benefit when the timer flipped off and you picked up the worker, but now you take the benefit while the timer is still on the row and running. That was the difference that I was trying to remember. Thank you, Travis. I'll be sharing a photo of this soon, but I heard that Travis actually just got his copy of Pendulum from our friends at MeepleSource. They live fairly close to Travis, so I think Cynthia handed off a copy of the game to Travis recently. Just yesterday, I think. So Travis, I'm glad you have your copy of the game in your hands. Thomas says, when will you tell us more about the Tapestry expansion? After I'm done talking about the Pendulum stuff. So Pendulum, I'll talk about this month. I'll probably finish the design diary post sometime next week, and then we'll have rulebooks, watch it played videos, and then reviews, and then we'll have the pre-order, and then in mid-August we'll talk about the Tapestry expansion. But right now, we're shining the spotlight on our one and only game of 2020, Pendulum. Seid says, I'm in love with Scythe, and I am super new to board games. I think you're a genius. That's high praise. I'm definitely not a genius, but I appreciate you saying that. He says, what are my top 5 4X board games? Off the top of my head, it's always tough for me to do list off the top of my head. I do have a video about my favorite Civ games. I don't know if Cody's here. Cody can find that. But a lot of Civ games have the 4X element. And I have a somewhat fluid definition of 4X. Like Seven Wonders actually comes to mind because Seven Wonders touches upon those notches of 4X, even though it doesn't have like hexes on a board, things like that some people associate with 4X. What is my favorite 4X game? I don't know if I've done a video specifically about 4X. And what I'm struggling to, I have a list about Civ games that I really enjoy, but one of the reasons I designed a Civ game is that none of them quite scratched the itch that I wanted from a 4X game. I mean, Scythe, I don't want to pick my own game, but Scythe is definitely up there. Terra Mystica doesn't have the conquering, so I don't want to say Terra Mystica. Kemet is so focused. I don't know. I don't even know if I have a 4X game that really, really stands out. Let me pull up the BGG list while I'm talking. I'll answer another question. I'll pull up the 4X list. Chris says, is there or will there be an Automa design diary by Morton? Yes, there will actually be 2 of them, Chris. Morton has written them, and I just need to post them. I think I'm going to post one on Friday. So let me do an advanced search on Board Game Geek for 4X games that I have rated. Okay. Hopefully I can find this. I don't know if 4X is listed here as a mechanism. Board game category, maybe? No, I don't know if I'm missing something here. I see Civilization as a category, but not 4X. Let's see what Civ games pull up. I'll look at my rating. Yeah, a lot of mine that I really like that are in this category are a little bit abstracted from 4X, like Seven Wonders Duel. I wouldn't put Terra Mystica in the 4X category. Um, yeah, I'm not seeing any jump jump out all that much. Yeah, I don't know. I'll move on because I'm just stalling here. Andy says, I've recently started playing Wingspan. I noticed there's quite a spread in scores. Oh, Andy, your question just skipped by. Sorry, Facebook's doing that thing. I need to answer questions more quickly. So I'm going to scroll forward a little bit. If I missed your question, let me know. Um, Mike says, did I miss the Pendulum pre-order? Nope, not until August 5th. James says, have I ever thought about going to Shark Tank for any kind of investment? I enjoy Shark Tank, and I think as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, it'll be exciting to be on there. But no, I don't think having a shark would benefit Stonemaier Games specifically. I think it's good for certain people, certain types of companies, but not Stonemaier Games specifically. Gloria says, on Sunday we interviewed the Wingspan illustrators in our podcast. Any difficult questions for them? Uh, People are welcome to post them in the comments. I know the illustrators pretty well at this point, Natalia and Anna. So I don't necessarily have any questions for them. Douglas also asked about the Tapestry expansion. We'll have news about that in mid-August. Levy says, does the Grande worker in Pendulum bump another player's worker? No, the way Grande workers work, like in viticulture, is that they can be placed on an action that is already occupied or already full. Robert says, does Pendulum have any built-in catch-up mechanism? If one player is dominating, is there any chance for others to catch up? Yeah. I've definitely seen players jump ahead, like focus on victory points early on, and then fall behind because they haven't focused on their engine as well. I haven't seen many runaway leaders in Pendulum. I mean, the way we usually focus with our games is we don't rubber band. We don't say, okay, if you're falling way behind, here's an obvious way that we are going to help you catch up. Um, it's more like we try to balance our games so that all players, even newer players, have a chance to do pretty well in the game and feel satisfied about what they do. Perseverance. Yeah, people are mentioning the other Kickstarter that I was reading yesterday, and that is Perseverance, a survival exploration game, it looks like, with a lot of heavy elements. It's from Mind Clash Games. Matthias says, oh, can we expect news on the Tapestry expansion in August? Lots of enthusiasm about the Tapestry expansion today. I appreciate that. Yeah, mid-August is when I'll talk about that. Wayne says, do I think that the way games play on sites like Board Game Arena will affect sales of board games? For example, Board Game Arena allows for not shuffling cards and the ease of scorekeeping. Yeah, I talked about some of this stuff on a video recently, and actually I'm doing my top 10, coincidentally, I'm doing my top 10 favorite games on Board Game Arena this week. I don't think they take away sales from board games. I think it's more likely that they give players opportunities to learn the rules for games that they might buy. But it's rare. I think that people might play a game on Board Game Arena and say, I'm never going to buy the physical version, even though I really, really enjoyed this game. I'm sure it happens sometimes. There are certain perks to Board Game Arena and digital games, like you've mentioned here. But I think particularly after we move past the pandemic someday, board games, all this plane of virtual games are going to lead to a big bump in tabletop sales. Sari says, do I find that people like to do certain things, elements of the game, more during downtime between turns? I know that you like to keep that occupied. Yeah, I like to give players something to do. There's very little downtime in Pendulum. Very, very little downtime. And the downtime that you have, like when you're waiting for a worker to finish a 3-minute action, is really nice because it gives you a little time to take a breather, and a little time to analyze your strategy and time to play those stratagem cards that you have. So I would say those are the main things that people do during the downtime in the game. Ryan says, are there minis in Pendulum? No, there are not minis in Pendulum. There are a number of plastic components, but there are things like cubes and tokens and meeples and things like that. Luke says, when does the Pendulum review embargo lift? So what we do with reviews is that we send out a dozen or around 11, between 10 and 12 advanced review copies to reviewers. And we give them a date around a week before the pre-order date, and we say, okay, this is the date when you can start sharing your opinions about the game. That is not to hide anything. I actually have no idea what they're going to say about our games. I don't even look after they published it, but rather it's to give them time to be on an even playing field, so they're not racing to be the first one to say something about the game. So they got the games weeks ago. They have plenty of time to take their time and actually play the game a number of times and offer a well-informed opinion and not be rushing out to it. So to answer your question, it's about a week before the pre-order. Michael says, how is the COVID crisis impacting the supply of stock to international hubs? Are they all likely to be stocked up with Pendulum for pre-order? COVID has nothing to do with it. It's merely a matter of how many copies I told our manufacturer to send to each fulfillment center. So that is somewhat of a guessing game for me. I had to guess how many I think each fulfillment center needs. And we can always send more. The problem is more when I don't send it, when I send too many. And so they're stocked with or they will be stocked by the time the pre-order begins, except for the UK. The UK might be a few days behind because it takes a little longer to get to the UK. But definitely in Canada and Australia, unless something crazy comes up, they will have what I wanted them to be sent from China. Michael says that mail has been very slow to our neck of the woods. Interesting. I don't think that should be a problem with the freight shipment. I guess it could be slower internally. Yeah, I don't know. Jeremy says, are folks at risk of bumping into each other and trying to move workers around? Is there a rushed feeling? I would not say there's a rush feeling. I don't feel frantic or panicked or rushed when I play Pendulum. I guess there is the possibility that you'll happen to reach for something at the same time as another player. I don't think I encountered all that much in playtesting Pendulum. Kentoku says, in Pendulum, what triggers the end of the round? Yeah, let's show you the purple timer. So the purple, did I have this right side up? No, purple timer here is here. So you can see there are 4 slots for the purple timer. At the beginning of each round, or at least at the beginning of the game, I think it can move around. The purple timer starts here, and there are tokens placed here, here, and here. And then at the beginning of the game, you'll flip the purple timer, and it knocks off that token and starts to tick down 3 minutes. And then you'll flip it again, and it'll go up here, and it'll knock off another token, and you'll flip it again, and it'll knock off this token. And when you do that, it triggers the end of the round. You still wait while that timer runs out. You can still do things until that timer runs out, but that does trigger the end of the round. So each round is 3 minutes. It looks like 9, but it's really 3 minutes based on this purple timer. Ben says, at what level do you think a game collapses under its own complexity? Like meeples, cards, boards, player boards, dice. What helps you decide the point when you say enough is enough? That's a good question. I don't even know if it necessarily has to do with components, although I do try to keep an eye on how long it takes to set up a game. I never want a game to take too long to actually set up. And sometimes games, I think, try to have a little bit too much replayability and variability, and they have like every little part of the board is a token or a tile or a token that you're randomly placing on the board. I like to avoid that. I don't necessarily know that leads to complexity, though. That's just setup time. As for complexity itself, one way that I look for it is how well playtesters remember the rules, and even how well do I remember the rules as I'm playing multiple times. If a game is too complex and I can't remember the core ideas of the game or the things that I need to know to actually play the game, that can be a concern. So it's really, complexity for me is how often do I need to refer to the rule book? And so part of that is like how many exceptions are in the rules, how many little things that make players, remember this little thing, and that's not built into the interface of the game. But yeah, complexity to me is just how easy is it to learn the game and remember the game. And it's just a matter of playtesting the game a lot to see what that balance is. James says, why are rulebooks generally the size of the box? Sometimes they are a little unwieldy being so big. So my preference, James, is that rulebooks are approximately the size of a standard piece of paper. So that way they're easy to print at home if people want to print them. For Pendulum, we wanted a little bit more room, and so we did use a rulebook the size of the box, which I agree can be a little unwieldy, but we wanted a little bit more room for examples and things like that. So I think there's 2 schools of thought there, like how you do have the dimensions of the box pretty much to fit the rules into, but do you want to go with that or go with a smaller, more printable rulebook? Tim says, when you take the benefit, does that mean that is locked until the timer is done or the benefit available for another action another time. So when you take the benefit while the timer is running, does that mean that is locked until the timer? Yes, the worker is locked in place. Travis says, Chris says, what did it feel like for you when you held a finished copy of your game in your hands for the first time? It felt amazing for me. Maybe Travis can answer in the comments if he's still here. Peter says, is the game language independent or language dependent? I would say that Pendulum is approximately 95% language independent. We really cut down on the text because in real time you don't want to be reading a lot of text. So there's one component that has a little bit of text on it, but I would say it's close to 95% language independent, if not higher. Justin says he's thinking about streaming Scythe Digital Edition tonight. He was wondering how different does it feel when playing a game you designed rather than other games? Do you ever play Scythe Digital Edition? I have played a very tiny little bit of Scythe Digital Edition, but not much. When I'm playing a game, if I'm teaching it, it feels like I'm teaching a game and kind of working for Stonemaier Games by teaching the game. If I'm just relaxing and playing it with other people who know how to play, as long as it's not the first play of it, the first play of the published version is me being really worried that I missed something. But after that, I get to relax and just enjoy the game. And I really enjoy it. I make games that I enjoy playing, and so I definitely have fun playing my games. Christian says, do I have any plans or ideas for more viticulture expansions in the future? We are working on one. I'm not committing to making it yet because it's a work in progress, but I am excited about the possibility of a new viticulture expansion. John says, dumb question. Sorry, John, I should have said this. This isn't a dumb question at all. John says, what are 4X games? 4X games are games that feature exploration, extermination. I'm going to forget all the X's. It's 4X's. Exploration, extermination. Oh man, I'm forgetting the 4X's. One is about resource production, and I'm blanking. Okay, I'll look it up. It's basically empire building games, but with 4 different tenets. Expansion. Expansion is one. 4X definition. Explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. There we go. So explore is, exploring. Expanding is usually gaining more land, controlling more territories. Exploitation is the production of resources, and extermination is interaction with opponents or the AI. Chris says, have I seen Hamilton yet? What was my favorite song? Yeah, I actually did watch Hamilton over this weekend for the first time on Disney Plus and really, really enjoyed it. I was amazed on many levels by the production. I wrote about it on my blog, jamiestegmeyer.com, last night. My favorite song, the only song I knew going into it was the first song, the Hamilton song. But there was a song called, it was by Aaron Burr that I really enjoyed. Wait for It, that I thought was great. Aaron Burr was a much bigger part of the production than I thought he was going to be, and he was awesome. The actor who played Aaron Burr in it was an incredible singer and had some great songs. Sam says, can I briefly talk about the design process of creating the encounter cards inside and what was my overall goal for them? So the idea behind the encounter cards is I wanted you to feel like you're showing up at a scenario, at a place where something is happening, and you have to decide what you want to do with that place, or with that situation, but in a way that gives you a lot of agency and control, opposed to an encounter being something random that happens to you. And I wanted it to be good. I wanted the players to be excited about the encounters and every time to feel like they're getting some stuff. And so I designed the encounters so that you can always get one of the benefits. One of the benefits is free. You can always just choose that one. Or the other two cost something, and cost something thematically. One usually has you paying some money to gain something, and one has you losing popularity because you're kind of doing something kind of mean, kind of snarky in the scenario, and you lose popularity as a result. The people of the land aren't happy with what you've done. Also, one little thing about the encounters is they don't have titles. They don't have names. They don't say, like, you have encountered a farmer working with this cow. And the reason for that is that the art shows the what's happening. You are seeing it from a first-person perspective. And so you can add your own story to it if you want, although there is written story in the descriptions of the 3 choices. But basically, you are seeing what you're seeing rather than having the game tell you what you're seeing. That was the core ideas behind it. Okay, Andy reposted this question that got skipped before. He said there's a spread in Wingspan when he plays. He says the winner's first bird was the kill deer, and the entire game they never had to use any water bird actions. Since Wingspan has little player interaction, which I'll argue, I think if you go on our website, you can see 10 different ways that there are forms of player interaction in Wingspan, reasons to pay attention to other players, ways that what you do impacts what other players do. But Andy was looking to hinder that player. And yeah, definitely, Wingspan is not a game about hindering other players. It's about doing the best that you can for yourself. It's not a game about hurting other players. It's a game about, doing what's good for your engine. He says, how do I recommend dealing with the 2-for-1 cards in Wingspan? Well, Andy, I'd say this. I mean, we're pretty happy. We're very happy with how the cards worked out for Wingspan. But if there's a card that really bothers you, just pull it out. If there's one that you think just doesn't work for your style of play, just pull it out of the game and don't play with it anymore, because there are plenty of other cards that you can use to play within Wingspan. Cody says, I'm fairly new to board gaming and I love the quality of all of your games. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. Is there another designer company that puts the same amount of polish into their products as you do? There are quite a few of them, I would say. I appreciate that you said that about Stonemaier, but there are quite a few other companies that put a lot of polish, especially at what I consider a fair price. One that comes to mind is Thundergriff. But if you want to look at a pretty comprehensive list of companies that are fairly similar to Stonemaier Games in a number of different aspects, go to Stonemaier Games and look up Instagram. Yeah, okay, the bulk post is stonemeiergames.com, 20 Instagram strategies and my recommendations. And what I do there is I look at a bunch of other companies that are very similar to Stonemaier Games, and I look at their Instagram strategies, which is not relevant to your question, but it is a fairly comprehensive list of companies that are similar in size and scope and philosophy to Stonemaier Games. And it just happens to be an article about Instagram. James says he's just started relearning Japanese. What was the hardest part about learning it yourself? You know, I kind of had I studied Japanese for a big part of my life. I started in 7th grade. I studied abroad in Japan 3 times, and I ended my studies in my senior year of college. The hardest thing for me is that I learned it for 6 years through some very well-meaning teachers who taught in a very different way than my college professors taught Japanese. And so even though I learned Japanese for 6 years and studied abroad twice, when I entered college, I had to start over at level 1 because I had to unlearn some things that I had learned that weren't all that correct and relearn things from a different foundation. So that was a little tough to say, I've spent the last 6 years of my life doing this, and now I have to start over. But at the same time, I could bring all the knowledge that was correct to that point into it. So that was a very unique experience for me in particular. In general, let's see, something that was difficult about it. What was difficult about it? I mean, originally, the hardest thing for me that I eventually somewhat gave up on was reading and writing kanji. I could read and write plenty of kanji when I was really immersed in Japanese in Kyoto in my junior year, but I realized that it wasn't quite a priority for me. I was more interested in conversation. And so that was something that I kind of gave up along the way that I didn't consider being all that important, especially since many of the signs in Japan are written in Romaji, like the English, like the English spelling of the Japanese words. Joktan says, Viticulture is one of my all-time favorite games. Do you think I would like Pendulum? Yeah, I mean, if you like the engine building, the progression, the worker placement in Viticulture, and the sense of kind of saying, okay, I need to do this, and it'll lead to this payoff, I think you'll really enjoy Pendulum. But that's totally up to you, and I hope you take the reviewer's word for it. We have a bunch of reviewers that are going to be offering their opinions in a few weeks, so make sure to check that out to see what they say about the game. Steven says, have I ever been saving a name for a game and then seen it published by someone else? Intrepid is a recent game with a Stonemaier-esque title. There have actually been a couple games recently that have come out with one-word titles that I liked a lot. I really like the name Vast. It wasn't one that I had planned on using, but I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's a really good name. Vast is such a great name for a game. But have I ever seen a game specifically use it? There have been a few times where I've been researching game names and then found, another game that is still relevant in some way has that name, so I avoided it. Apparently there is another Pendulum out there, but I wouldn't call it relevant in a modern way. All respect to whoever designed that game. Um, but we were able to get the trademark for Pendulum. That game, I think, only has a few ratings on it. Courtney says, any further details about content for the Tapestry expansion? Lots of excitement for the Tapestry expansion today. I have it behind me, but I'm not going to show it to you today. I will talk about it in mid-August. Carrie says, any plans for a co-op game in the Stonemaier Games catalog? And yes, I am working on a cooperative game. It's a pretty big game. It's an open world exploration game with strong elements of cooperation and collaboration. Um, and so that'll be, I think, our first cooperative game, unless something comes out of nowhere to surprise me in the meantime. Seth says, you don't like to use catch-up mechanisms. How do you feel about the headwinds concept, which makes things harder for the leader rather than easier for the trailing players? That's interesting. I would say that's close to rubber banding. There's a little bit of rubber banding in there. Rubber banding is, at least the way I talk about it, is when the last place player, like the first place player, can't get too far away from the last place player, just based on the mechanisms. I think Mario Kart is kind of a great example of this. In Mario Kart, the player who's in last place, when they get benefits, they get really powerful benefits, often benefits that directly hurt the first place player or the players ahead of them. Whereas if you're in first place in Mario Kart, you get a lot of weaker benefits. I think applied well to a game, I'm fine with it, but I'm trying to think if any of our games really have those mechanisms, and I don't think they do. Our games generally reward the players who play the best, while ideally still offering a satisfying experience for those that have fallen behind. Renee says, "Oh, looks like Robert actually likes rubber banding. Interesting. Yeah, I usually hear that used as a fairly negative term, rubber banding." Renee says, "Have I seen the new games added to Board Game Arena, like Potion Explosion, Yokohama, and Downforce?" Yeah, I'm really excited to play Downforce on there because I love Downforce, and I have played Potion Explosion on there. I haven't played Yokohama on Board Game Arena yet. Miles says, "How did blind playtesters deal with the timers? Did they use phone timers?" No, I don't think phone timers really work for Pendulum. What we had to do, actually, for Pendulum, the playtest process, I should talk about this in the design diary, but I'll mention it here. I'm making note of this. We had to send them timers. So we had to buy 45-second, 2-minute, and 3-minute timers, and we sent them to blind playtesters around the world. And then they had to send them to the next playtester. It was a little arduous to do that. So I'm looking forward to, if we have an expansion, that players will already have those sand timers. But yeah, we had to actually physically send the timers to the playtesters. I think some of them were easy to get. Some people could have bought like maybe the 2-minute timer. I think it was the 45-second one, or maybe the 3-minute timer that was a little harder to find. Xavier says, any word on the Oceania expansion for Wingspan or the app game? The last I've heard from the digital developer is that the app will be ready sometime in August, but I don't really know about that. Oceania is in production right now, and it should be released much later in 2020. Matthias also asked, maybe he's repeating the question, how language dependent is Pendulum? I would say it's 95% language independent. That means that you don't need to read English text to be able to play the game, or read text in any specific language. Okay, Daniel says, what mechanisms are you most excited for people to experience with Pendulum? I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. I think the stratagem cards are maybe my favorite mechanism in the game. But I love the way the timers create this. Really, I love the flow of the game. The flow feels really good. I like the unique, the asymmetry in terms of the length of the different victory point tracks on each of the characters. I mentioned that earlier. How we're looking at this character has these lengths of tracks. So to win the game, they need to complete these tracks and then hopefully venture into the parchment area here. But on this side, the tracks are a little bit different lengths. I like that from character to character. I'd say that's definitely up there. What else? And the engine building. I love engine building in the game, so I love that too. Stanislav says, why are the sand timers green, purple, and black? Why those specific colors? I can't remember. I think we just tried to use different colors for different meanings in games, and we wanted the timers to not be the same colors as the victory point tracks. Yeah, I think that's the main reason there. no big reason. Gerald says, on what date can I talk about your design of Pendulum Rolling Realms? Yeah, I am hoping to add Pendulum at some point to the Rolling Realms format, particularly if we decide to publish it using cards. Currently, it uses a 3x3 grid because we had 3 games. Now we have, or we had 9 games. Now we have 10 games, so it doesn't fit well into a 3x3 grid. Cooper says, what was my inspiration in making viticulture? Yeah, it was basically I designed games my whole life, but I got excited by Kickstarter. I wanted to put a game on Kickstarter. This was back in 2011. And I wanted to put a game there that I thought could appeal to non-gamers and gamers alike. So I wanted to basically pick a theme that I thought would work for both types of gamers. So it would appeal to maybe the Euro gamers who love farming games and non-gamers who might be otherwise turned off by fantasy and sci-fi themes. So it didn't really stem from a particular like love of wine for me in particular, just the romanticized idea of running a vineyard and how that might appeal to different people. Simon says, have I played Forgotten Waters yet? I have, yeah, I have a copy back here. We played through the first scenario a little while ago. Did I say 3 minutes, Travis? Yeah, each round is 6 minutes. I meant to say three. I meant to say six, but yeah, each round in Pendulum is 6 minutes, 6 timed minutes. Scott says he has a middle school game club. Would 12 to 14-year-olds get Pendulum? If they've played other like medium weight Euro games, worker placement games,